All right, we are back another week, another Saints game, another show to get you in the know. I am here with Dave Rainey of Who Effin Knows at Who Effin Knows at the Dave Rainey. Go check them out. Who Effin Knows? I don't care what anybody says. Is the best podcast in the world. They go on world tours. They have content for everybody. And if you ask what the pod's about, Who Effin Knows? You'll see when you get there. Anyway, Saints game today. How you feeling, Dave? Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime.
This is their chance to hook me back in. Right? The two-game win streak against some mid teams. You're like, and it's not just win streaks. Like they've looked fairly decent the last 2 weeks. But if they beat the Rams, who are a good team, on prime time on a short turnaround, it's gonna be hard not to be hooked back in. Because right now I'm still on the I wish they would lose and get a better draft pick bandwagon. But if they win this one, I'm all in on the playoffs, I think.
Yeah, I was telling a friend of mine earlier. He's not a Saints fan. He's originally from California, and he was like, "What do you think about the Saints games?" And he's a Raiders fan, so he's not a Rams fan. But he was just chatting about it, and he was like, "What do you think about the Saints game later tonight?" And I was like, honestly, like this is probably the most excited I've been since week one. Like, and it feels weird to say that because like this team has gone through so many ups and downs. Like you had the shutout, against the Patriots team that was not very good, but was still a shutout. Just so many ups and downs, but I just feel like I think I'm excited for both reasons. Like I'll know after tonight, are we going to the playoffs or are we wasting our time? Like the Rams game feels like it's going to define the rest of the season. So I'm right there with you. I've said it multiple times on this post and pregame show. Sports fans want hope, right? And right now we have a little bit of that, and that's what we're hanging on to. But hopping into the injury report, nothing too surprising on a short week, other than Olave making a return. So that's a plus. He's been up and down all season with different issues. But he's back, which is good to see. That's a huge plus in my opinion. It just gives more reasons that the offense should perform at a higher level than they have. And then Lonnie Johnson, no surprise, him being out. That knee injury looked pretty gnarly last week, just based on the pain that he was in and that it was non-contact. So, and then once again, two rookies, Isaiah Foskey and Kendre Miller, both out.
Kendre's a bit of a surprise because earlier in the week they said he was playing. So
right.
That one's a little weird for me.
No, I agree. Yeah, and we signed that. I can't even think of his name right now. So like
Robinson.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, hey, Kendrick might be out for the season at this point if we're like signing somebody. But then they like went back to the practice squad, gave him the explanation. He never really came up to active roster. So I don't know what's going on with that. But either way, Foskey, Lonnie Johnson, Ramczyk, and Peyton Turner all out tonight. It looks like Carl Granderson and Cameron Jordan are going to play, so no real question marks there. And on the other side, really the only person out is their corner, Tomlinson. And I think the guard is a game time decision, but he didn't practice all week. So I guess we'll see. I haven't seen any updates on that. But again, no big surprises on injury report. Just other than the Kendre thing is, a bit interesting. Don't know if it has something to do with a short week or other team decision. But either way, I like the odds of AK getting a touchdown today. So I said it last week. He's not going to be my pick today, but I said it last week. He should get one every week. It feels like, but he doesn't. But
yeah.
Yeah, you briefly touched on the Kendre thing being a bit of a surprise, and it feels weird to say that because it's the opposite all season. Like we didn't expect him to play, and then the 1 week that I kind of expected him to be here, he's not. But nonetheless, we got Jamal Williams, we got Alvin Kamara, we'll be fine. I'm not too concerned about the running back position, but hopping into just overall game, the Rams are also 7-7, Saints are 7-7. Not a whole lot going on for other than the Saints game and the Pels game today, so we can definitely pay attention to that. But looking forward in the week, overall schedule, we have obviously a lot of important games for us because the Saints lose they're done. But that's all that matters, right? We could talk about the divisional games. The NFC South is a tight race, but at the end of the day, the Saints just need to win. That's their only path in. We can't worry about who's losing and who's this and who's that. There's no other way. You just have to win. So, any game you're looking forward to outside of the Saints game this weekend?
Let me pull it up. Give me yours while I look. I forgot.
Okay, yeah.
Look at it.
I like Miami and Cowboys this week. They're both high-scoring offenses. It's going to be fun to kind of watch them just go head-to-head. They're, again, just two fast and efficient offenses, so offense is fun to watch, right? But they both also have like a sneaky good defense, so it's going to be interesting to see, like, is it going to be like steel sharpening steel, or is it just going to be a slugfest between Dallas and Miami? So that's my game to watch this week.
Yeah, I forgot the Ravens and 49ers play. That's definitely my game of the week. That's 49ers pretty clearly are the best team in the NFL, in my opinion. When the only games they look bad were when they weren't healthy. When the 49ers are healthy, they look completely overwhelming. And then the Ravens, as of late, also kind of look completely overwhelming in the AFC. So I think you're pretty clearly getting the two best teams in the league right there, at least at this moment. So that's potential Super Bowl preview right there, maybe. Maybe you got two potential Super Bowl previews, because I don't think anybody would be surprised if it was Dallas and Miami also. I mean, maybe a little bit surprised if it was Dallas,
Right.
but, never know.
Yeah, it's they say the NFL plays what feels like way more than on a Sunday now. Obviously, with Thursday night, some games flex on a Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But yeah, I mean, any given Sunday is more valid in the NFL than I think any other. The NBA is any given night, because you could play the same team back to back and you rest half your team on night two, and it just looks like a different team. But the NFL being week to week. Yeah, any given Sunday, you never know that the 49ers could get knocked out, by the Cowboys. And, I wouldn't be crazy surprised, but it would be, interesting. But I said a couple of times this year that it looks like the 49ers are having one of those seasons where you just don't see anybody beating them, especially when it comes to like playoff time. Purdy's kind of playing with a chip on his shoulder, even though he's kind of proven himself. He's still like a question mark for some people. And then on the other side, where you're talking about the other potential matchup or the potential Super Bowl preview with the Ravens, I feel like Lamar Jackson's in the same boat. Like, the dude has done nothing but like go out and play high level football, and people are still like, isn't he just a running back? So it's like silly, but the conversation's still there. So I think both those guys kind of have a chip on their shoulder and go into every single week with a little bit of a different mentality than most guys prepping. So other games, obviously we have the Falcons playing the Colts, Panthers playing the Packers, and then the Bucs playing the Jags. We normally talk about NFC South, but like I said, they just really don't matter at this point. It feels weird to say that, considering it's all knotted up, but they just don't matter, because the only way the Saints do it is win. So, but nonetheless, I think the Falcons and Tampa, I almost want to see them just like win, so maybe they don't feel as much, don't feel as much pressure, right? Like, if they lose and then come into the Saints game with like a must-win game, all games are must-win for these teams at this point. But I don't want to see them like get blown out or something like that, because then like I just don't think that bodes well for the Saints, because division games are always tight no matter the playoff implications. So either way, just a lot of it looks like evenly matched teams this week. Bucks 7-7, Jaguars 6-6, Commanders 4-10, Jets 5-9. Just a lot of similar records. I don't know how that happened this late in the season. Well, but most teams are looking like they're looking at themselves in the mirror. So
I'll touch on that for a second, and before we like really dive into our game. Everybody's been talking about how bad the NFC South is because every team's 7-7. But if you look at the standings, outside of the top teams, the entire league is 7-7 or around that. So like, we have a lot of the same. We've all had easy schedules in our division, and that kind of would make us look bad. But the entire league has the same record as us, so that argument's kind of getting old to me. And like, not to say that we're better than we are, because I do think our division is terrible, but I think that half the league is just average this year, or more than half the league is just average this year. There's no quarterbacks left. I think my grandma asked me the other day, how many teams have backup quarterbacks. And I just looked at the schedule for the weekend and went through who I know. And I think it was 12 teams have backup quarterbacks starting right now, whether it be from injuries or just, other reasons. And it's just like, it's been bad football this year, just in general, outside of the top teams. So I think that that argument about the NFC South being terrible needs to just kind of start fading away.
Yeah. The NFC South, I think, is probably one of the more, I would say, like mixed up divisions as well. Like you had Drew Brees recently retired, Tom Brady recently retired, Sean Payton left, Bruce Arians went to like a more reserve position. Falcons have like a new head coach, new tight end, new running back, new quarterback. It's just like the NFC South in general is just going through like almost like a rebrand, like a changing of the guard. So there's a lot to be said about the reason the NFC South. I look at some of these other teams and I just feel like you don't have an excuse. Like the Cardinals have like draft capital, they've traded, they've made changes. Like you're running out of excuses if you're the Cardinals. But the NFC South, I think there is a list of reasons if you're not the Carolina Panthers on why your team is the way it is right now. So yeah, jumping right in, Rams, Saints. It again, going back to like the fact that the Saints offenses look good. They have looked good. And I'm happy to see that they're kind of putting these games together a little more to look good all around. I think last week was probably like, despite us beating the Patriots, 35-0, whatever it was, that was probably, I would say, the most complete game. Everybody seemed to be clicking on the same page, which we haven't seen all season. The 35-0 game just looked like a fluke, even in the moment. So, but the Rams are kind of middle of the league, both passing and rushing offense overall. They're middle of the league. So I expect Derek Carr to be able to throw for 300 plus yards tonight. But the biggest key is obviously just him putting it in the end zone. That's kind of been the kryptonite all season up until last week. So I would just say you're looking at less, I would say, Taysom Hill recently, just with his kind of injury issues last week. But we still did good in the red zone. Derek Carr put it in the red zone twice, which he got our player of the game last week. And if he keeps that up, I'd love to give him to him more. But it was nice to finally see him put it in the end zone. I love Taysom Hill, right? Like I want to see him succeed. And I love that red zone offense. And I feel like as much as we joke that we should probably rely on it, I almost don't want to. We need a quarterback who can score in the red zone. We don't need a gimmick that gets us red zone touchdowns that eventually teams are going to counter somehow, and I say that, and they haven't countered Taysom Hill in a while. But yeah, so I'd like to see us just score well against the Rams, and not in the sense of like these big bomb plays, just efficiency, and just kind of carry that into the last two games of the season. But how are you feeling going into the game?
I don't know. I'm kind of got a little bit of mixed emotions, I guess. It's like on paper, I think this feels like a game where we're completely outmatched. I'm gonna be honest. At least from the Rams, like offense. Their defense, like you said, kind of middle of the pack, but their offense is as loaded as it's ever been, and maybe more dangerous than it's ever been because now they have two of those guys that seem uncoverable. And we all know what Cooper Kupp can do to us, even when we have our number one guy. So that, like, on paper, I'm worried, but like I said, the last 2 weeks they've kind of got me to start believing a little bit. You're starting to see issues that we've had maybe not be fixed, but improved. The red zone, like you mentioned, is getting better the last 2 weeks. Offense just looks a little better. So far, I mean, they're still starting slow. Or too slow for my liking. I'd really like to see them just come out and get like a first drive touchdown. Like just something to or like score on like your first 2 or 3 drives, whether it's a touchdown and a field goal or just keep putting points on the board. We go through these periods, it feels like, where it's just like 3 and out after 3 and out, or maybe a first down here and then a 3 and out. Like there's no sustained offense for the entire game. I think that's the next evolution of improvement for them, is just because even last week when the beginning of the game, it took a minute for them to get going, right? But once they found their groove, they were rolling. And like outside of that Patriots game, which I'm not even counting for anything, like I don't give them credit for anything against that team. Outside of that, it just feels like there hasn't been any like a full game of good offense from them. Last week the defense put together a full game from start to finish, just dominant. I think that's the only thing we've really been missing is a game where both sides of the ball dominate from start to finish. And I mean, I guess that's an unrealistic expectation against the Rams because it just feels like these games are always close. If they did that against the Rams, I think I'd buy all the way in. If they just completely dominated them, like I'd be in on the playoffs and be ready to go. But kind of expecting a slow game, from both sides of the ball, just because of the way we always match up with the Rams.
Yeah, no, I agree definitely, and that's I think just the biggest reason why this week's important is because it, like you said, we've had a couple of mid opponents lately. There's no surprise, but as you also alluded to, the NFL in general is kind of just mid right now, outside of maybe 5 or 6 teams. Like it's just not a very impressive showing for the NFL this year. But nonetheless, the Saints put this game together against the Rams defense. And, you said on paper, and the Saints on paper as well at the beginning of the season looked like they should have been better, but I love to quote Bobby Hebert when people talk about on paper, because, he was asked one year that we ended up going 7-9 before the season. They were like, on paper, the Saints team, and he cut him off and he was like, well, hang on. The thing about paper is I can crumple it up and throw it in the trash can. And he's like, I don't want to hear about paper, So I just love that because I feel like that's the way the Saints have been. It's like, on paper, like, yeah, well, it's not producing, throw it away, like get rid of the paper. But you're right. On paper, the Rams look like they should be a much higher record team than 7-7, but the Saints do too. Outside of the injuries to Michael Thomas and Marshall Lattimore, they got injured 2-3 weeks ago. So that's not an excuse for the previous 10 games before that, so. But either way, we'll kind of hop into that one anytime touchdown score for the Saints game and anytime touchdown score for the league wide. I'm going to go with Jimmy Graham. It just feels like I'm sorry, not Jimmy Graham, Juwan Johnson. It feels like they kind of figured out they can use Jimmy Graham in the red zone, and Juwan should get more of those looks now. And even if I think you could run it easy 3 tight end set with like Alvin Kamara out of the backfield in the red zone, and all 3 of the tight ends on the roster right now can catch and body people out like wide receivers and run normal routes. So there's no reason that you can't do some type of play action. And based on touches, I think Juwan's going to get the least amount of attention because everybody knows Jimmy Graham's a red zone threat. Everybody knows Foster Moreau and Derek Carr have history. This is true. Yeah, for the last 13 weeks. Yeah. No, absolutely. And then league wide, I like Kenneth Walker. He's going against the Panthers defense, who have allowed like a league high, I think 22 rushing touchdowns. And for his odds, it feels pretty good. Obviously, they can shift going into the weekend, but he's plus 120 right now. That feels like a decent bet for plus money, considering the Panthers rush defense is bottom of the league as far as touchdowns given up. So who you got for the Saints game?
I have no reason to believe that this is going to happen, but I like to go with somebody that feels overdue, and I'm going with Jamal Williams.
Okay.
I feel like, that was his thing last year, was just scoring touchdowns, whether they be from the 1 yard line or whatever. That's what he was brought in for, was to help solve red zone issues. And I don't know. I just have a gut feeling that we may finally see it tonight. Has he even scored one this year? If he has, I don't remember it.
No, I don't. I feel like he probably hasn't. Yeah.
He's been hurt a little bit too. So,
right.
I don't know, for some reason, and like they don't really use him that much in the red zone, but for some reason, it's just a gut feeling. Like I said, I have no reason to believe it's going to happen, but that's who I'm taking.
Yeah. No, I definitely like that a lot. Just considering, I think he should be a focal part of the red zone, especially down, inside the 5 yard line. So, I like it, all things considered.
I think it's what I want to see happen.
Right.
It
No,
really is
that's
what,
fair.
is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah. Last week, my
Because
sneaky pick was A.T. Perry, but I think it's
right,
because with Olave out, Michael Thomas out,
yeah,
like Rashid kind of questionable during the week. It feels like that's who should get it, you know. But
yeah.
I
Regardless
still
of
think he's
how
a sneaky pick.
regardless of how the season's going with him, I love Jamal Williams. Like just as a
Definitely.
guy and really as a player, like I love Jamal Williams. So I want to see him get one. League wide, I'm going with James Cook. I think the Chargers are a complete mess and the Bills are rolling right now. You just saw them win a game against, or
Dominate.
not even just win a game, dominate the
Yeah.
Cowboys with I think Josh Allen having like 95 passing yards or something
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
like. So
Yeah.
I'm going James Cook against the Chargers because the Bills are rolling and getting hot.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. I'm gonna correct myself because I was looking at the wrong week schedule.
I saw that you
Um,
did.
Yeah, Aaron Jones is the running back that I was thinking of. Yeah, yeah. I was like, why? I was like, I could have swore it was the Packers, and I was like, no, I must be losing my. But I was looking at last week. But yeah, so Aaron Jones is my league wide anytime touchdown score. Like I said, going against the Panthers defense, he just feels like the type of guy who's going to tear you up if you let him, and he's a touchdown scorer. And it was kind of surprising to see Jamal Williams come in and take touches from him, or not Jamal Williams, Aaron Dillon. But those short yards guys, they just get results for the end zone. But I think this is a week that the Panthers will let Aaron Jones kind of run to the outside, and I think he breaks a big one for a touchdown this week. So, but you got anything else?
Nope, that's it. Pels are up 26-17 right now, in case anybody's
Love to
interested.
see it. Yeah, I'd love to see it. I think after the embarrassing loss they had, at home with Memphis, and Memphis talked trash going into that locker room, and then Memphis waved goodbye whenever they were going to the locker room. Those are the side. Memphis just feels like a rivalry that we shouldn't have, but it is definitely a rivalry. Like a lot of players going back and forth, trading the Zion, John Morant drama back and like all of this stuff. Like just feels like that's the team that if we ever face them in a playoff scenario, I'd love to go to the game because it's going to be intense,
Yeah.
And the players don't even dislike each other. Like the guys on both
No, they're
sides,
actually friends. Like
exactly. So I think that makes the rivalry better because they talk trash, and it's
right.
not like I hate you. It's just like, hey, like we're friends, and like it's like fantasy football talking trash. Like they're out there to like make the other guy feel embarrassed. So it's fun to watch, But
yeah.
Either way, it's been another week, another pregame show to get you in the know. Make sure you tune in and subscribe. That way, later on when we hit the post-game show, we'll be here with Jason Watson Jr., who did our preview for the Saints game, does previews for the Saints games pretty much every week. But yep, make sure you tune in. We'll be back pretty shortly after the game, just to keep things short and simple. And we'll more than likely touch on Pels as well, but just not too much since it's Saints pregame, post-game. But either way, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you later.
Later.